Well, good day to you. It is January the 12th, 2021, and by all intents and purposes, really, it's like the 377th day of 2020. There's not much difference between those 2 years, right? I mean, it's, my God. Now, you can either laugh about it, you can cry about it. I choose to kind of laugh because I tell you, there's nothing more pathetic than a 48-year-old man crying, believe me. Now, but the good news is I actually accomplished one of my major goals for 2021, which was to have more Twitter followers than Donald Trump. I have 100 followers on Twitter, and I officially have more followers than Donald J. Trump at this moment in time. It was a good run, Donald. Had to close out sometime, apparently. Yeah, he's probably not too happy about that. Now, if this is your first time ever listening to Search for Signs, I do want to welcome you. I want to thank you. My name is Gary Willing. What we do here and what we talk about here is we have over 300 videos where we talk about the emergence of the masters and talk about Maitreya, the world teacher, for not only the religious folks, but those of no religion whatsoever. And what does it mean that the teacher is already living in a modern city and has been speaking on TV for nearly 10 years? He's been living in a modern city for 40-ish, speaking on TV for a little over 10. And what does it mean? Now, and what is he talking about, right? Now, he's not claiming to be the one awaited by all the world's religions. It's not important to even see him as a long-awaited teacher for those groups. It's more important to really understand and help to accomplish his top priorities, which right now, the biggest priority he has for humanity is humanity must create true and lasting peace. You might think it's a utopian idea. You might think it's even impossible. But the path to peace is quite simple. He puts it like this: without sharing, there can be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. Without peace, there could be no future. So that's the most important thing we talk about. But we also look at the political unrest that's going on, the social unrest, the economic uncertainty for so many people. We talk about the environment and that problem that's still there and humanity is still trying to do something about and procrastinating about too at the same time. And then things like the coronavirus, right? And what does it mean? Is there any hope, or are we pretty much destined to go right off a cliff? Now, you don't know me. I don't really know you, unfortunately. But if you did, you would see somebody who's pretty optimistic about the future. Now, I tend to live life happy-go-lucky, kind of walk on like I'm walking on the sunny side of the street kind of deal. But that doesn't really mean much to you. But what if I told you there was actually evidence of hope? Because in the midst of all these struggles that humanity's been facing for my whole life, and it seems to be mounting and to this, point where it's just about to blow, there is evidence of hope because there have been miracles going on for as long as I can remember. Things like healing waters, crosses of light, crop circles, UFO sightings, angel sightings, people being saved from accidents and having true and authentic angel contact and so forth. They call them angels, but they're really these masters of wisdom who are helping them moment to moment and saving them from accidents and so forth. And, now a lot of people, like scientists, would deny those miracles because even though there's a scientific reason and method to why these waters, and these wells have healing properties, why these crosses of light appear in windows and so forth, our scientists don't understand that science. So therefore they say, if I don't know it, it ain't true, right? Rather than just saying, I don't know. Just posing that as a question. I don't know. It's so hard for people to say that sometimes. And then the people who are very fearful of these miracles who I don't think have actually had any miracles themselves or been present in any of these miracles, so they probably don't know what they're talking about, because the vast majority of the people, myself included, who have had these personal experiences or seen these miracles firsthand have always been left with a greater sense of hope for the future. So, and that's the reason why they were put there, was to bring about hope for people. And because, and this is the other thing I want you to take away from these videos, because they're happening to everybody all over the world and every country, there's not one single group that can lay claim to having the miracles and nobody else. So they can't say that those miracles are proving their faith and their belief in God or Jesus or whatever is the only true path to God. because Hindus are having miracles, like the Hindu milk miracle. Jews are having their miracles, like the lights over Jerusalem, for instance. Of course, Christians are having their miracles. Catholics are having their miracles. Not that Catholics aren't Christians, but you know what I'm saying, Protestants and Catholics and so forth. Muslims are having their miracles, and even people who are not of any particular brand of faith are having miracles. So it's happening to everybody, because the hope for humanity is for everyone, without exception, even though certain religious groups lay claim to thinking that they know the truth and everyone else is wrong and that kind of stuff. There's no truth to that. Now, if, for instance, you're not really a religious person, you're not a mystical person, that's fine, believe it or not, I'm in the same boat. Even though I talk about Maitreya as the teacher awaited by all the religions in nearly every video, I am more excited and more jazzed about the future because of his priorities. The need for peace, for instance, is his top priority for all of us. He puts it like this: the path to peace is quite simple. Without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. Without peace, there could be no future. So there is a path to peace. It's very simple. Humanity just must act and implement its will, from what the teacher says. So that is the most important thing that we can take away from these videos, is the need for peace and how we personally can help bring about peace in our own way. So hopefully that helps. Now, there are some questions I need to cover. And as always, I like to extend an opportunity for anyone who has a question about what we talk about here to simply post your question as a comment, and then I'll do my best to answer it as best I possibly can. All right? Fair enough? Now, the first question comes from David O. Now, you had a question, I guess, in a comment, but I'm just going to focus on your question, David, if that's okay. It says, "Hi, Gary. How come Maitreya doesn't push the financial, political, and other extremely wealthy elites to forfeit some of their substantial amount of their fortunes to solve the poverty around the world? Because those at the top would rather rape the middle class of whatever moderate assets they have, my family included. I eagerly await your response, David." Now, first of all, David, I do apologize, and everybody else, for me taking 6 days to put up a video. I tried several times. Didn't like the way it turned out, so I've been scrapping it and trying it again. So anyway, we get to this point now. Now, let me say, how do I say this, David? The reason why any one of us would ask a question like this, okay, why would Maitreya not just push the financial and political elite and extremely wealthy to forfeit some of their substantial amount of fortunes? Now, the reason why he wouldn't do that, and the reason why we would ask a question like that, is because we have not been educated in the laws of life yet. And the laws of life, for instance, the major laws that we must learn to live within the way that the masters do: harmlessness, law of cause and effect, and of course the law of free will, because the masters live their life perfectly within those laws. That's why they're masters and we're not. They're here to teach us how to live within the laws of life. So they would never, under any circumstances, push or force anyone to do anything. That's you, that's me, that's the rich and powerful elite, even if it meant that it would actually accelerate for a time their plans and purposes for humanity. So the masters never slip up and make a mistake and infringe our free will. We do it all the time. So we don't know really hardly the difference, because like I said, we haven't been educated on it. It's not your fault. It's everybody's fault, because we don't know how to live. That's the problem. That's the reason why we have the structures that we have. That's the reason why our families are the way that we are. That's the reason why we have the lives we have, and for good or for ill, because we don't live within the law of harmlessness. You know, Jesus said so many years ago, what you sow shall you reap, right? How many people really live their life moment to moment with that in mind when interacting with people, trying to be harmless? And thinking to yourself, if I actually harm that person, it's going to come back on me at some point. You know, it might not be today or tomorrow or next week, but sooner or later it's going to come back on me in the exact same proportion that I put out that harm, right? So now, that being said, okay, Maitreya might ask them, and he might have already asked some of these financial elites. There are a lot of people who are billionaires many, many times over, who are seeing the need of humanity and in their own way doing what they can financially to help, right? Even Maitreya even asked the late King Hussein of Jordan in this way, right? He met with him. He asked him if he would give up some of his land for the Palestinians, and the good king of Jordan did. Of course, the Israelis quickly stole that land back, but he offered to do that, right? And that's more the way that Maitreya will approach all of us, is ask, would you be willing to do this? Because they have the means to do this. Now, the individuals themselves, these multi-billionaires giving up their income is not going to bring about peace, okay? What's going to bring about peace through the principle of sharing, David, is when countries such as the United States take an inventory of the excesses that are just sitting there and ship it overseas to other countries to help them. And then those countries, whatever excesses they have, can give back to the common pool what they have and then take what they need and so forth and so forth. Even the United States, as great a country resource-wise as it is, has needs of something, and would be able to pull from that common pool freely just like Zimbabwe would, right? But we have a lot more excesses than, let's say, the Sudan has. So we should be expected to put more excesses in than they have. It's those excesses and those resources were given to all of us by divine providence. And so they should be shared equally amongst all the nations. I know it seems foreign because we live in a very capitalistic type of environment, but if you look all throughout cosmos, and even we're able to go on life on some of these higher planets, for instance, or see the way that masters interact with one another, sharing is a principle that exists all throughout cosmos, because that's the way that that life should be lived, is freely sharing, right? So that will bring about peace, not so much even the rich and powerful elite giving up their money. Now, Maitreya is here to inspire and galvanize humanity to build a brilliant golden civilization based on righteousness and truth. That's true, right? But we can also, as a people, right, put pressure on governments and institutions and so forth to not be so greedy and those kind of things. So Maitreya will be the voice of those people who have no voice. But even, and to take it one step further, David, before I go on to the next question, is no matter how limited your finances are or my finances are compared to other people around the world, we are the elite. So Maitreya is not going to force you to, give money away. He's going to ask people who have extra money, give a little bit. You don't have to give a lot. Just give something. But if you don't, that's your choice. We all will have that choice. But the masters, under no circumstances, will ever, 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 ever force any one of us to do anything that we don't want to do. And now, and then lastly, I'll say this. Once the priority of peace is established, and once humanity is starting to tackle the environment, Maitreya and these masters will start to teach us the laws of life. So we'll see how to live the way that they live. We'll also use them as examples of how to live, so that we will eventually realize that we have to live harmlessly within the law. We have to stop thinking harmful thoughts toward others, and thinking that we are doing that with nothing coming back to us, putting out bad vibes and bad emotions, the same thing, right? So we will use them as examples. But Maitreya, that's one of his biggest jobs over the next age, is to teach humanity how to live harmlessly, how to live within the law of cause and effect, how to live the laws of life perfectly. And then in 2,000 years, we won't be asking questions like this. And like I said, I'm not faulting you for it. I'm saying? I'm glad you actually asked this question, because it gives us a chance to talk about this, David. But, it comes from the fact that none of us are really educated on how to live life, because we all infringe life. We always infringe on free will on other people. And the masters will teach our world leaders how, as a nation, not to infringe on the free will of other nations and so forth, because they view free will as sacred. And eventually we will follow suit and realize that other people's free will is sacred too. So hopefully that helps. All right. But thank you again for the question, and thanks for the other comment about Bill Cooper and stuff like that. But anyway, next question. Daniel Dwyer. Any idea where pick at 3 seconds in is from? I need any possible info or opinion on where it is from and what it might be. Any input is greatly appreciated. Thanks in advance. All right, so I'm assuming it's this picture, and which looks like Jesus in the clouds. Now, the story behind this picture, from what I understand, there was a woman who was on a plane who saw a cloud that she thought was kind of cute, or kind of pretty or whatever, or beautiful or whatever. It didn't have the image of Jesus in the clouds until she had the photograph processed, and it showed up on the photograph. And there's been other people who have had that same kind of miracle where they've taken a picture of a cloud, or there was one instance where a woman saw this tree that she thought was quite beautiful and stunning. So she asked her husband to pull over off the side of the road. She took a picture of the tree. When the photograph was processed, it came back with this image of the Madonna on it. There's other images of, now these aren't necessarily, but okay, let me go back. Those images of Jesus, of the Madonna, are put there by the master's thought. So the master, who was the Madonna, actually she thought that image into the photograph. Same thing as the master Jesus did with the image of Jesus in the clouds, coming back in the clouds. That was actually put there by the master who was Jesus. Other masters can do the same thing. Maitreya has done the same thing from time to time. But for the most part, it's Jesus and the master who was the Madonna. Now, there's other images of, and these are also in my intro and outro, of cloud formations that look like huge spaceships. Now, those are actually done by the Space Brothers themselves within the ships. And I've seen some of these myself in my life, and they're quite stunning as well. And then you would think, right, for instance, especially if you're a Christian, right, well, oh my gosh, there's a picture of Jesus in the clouds, right? That confirms my belief. Well, again, with the Space Brothers, they're not of any real religion, so you can't really confine it to just the Christians having these miracles, right? But also, there was a devotee of Sai Baba, and there's a picture of it here where they took a picture of the clouds, and there's a picture of Sai Baba. Sai Baba imprinted his thought onto that photograph when it was processed. So anyway, that's how that looked, and it's quite beautiful because Sai Baba had this huge afro, and the cloud kind of looks like it morphs into this afro. It's a beautiful photograph if you take a look at it. But anyway, so it's happening to everybody in all walks of life, and there are probably even photographs in other religions of clouds that represent something that, for their religion, you know what I mean, that leads them to believe that there's something incredible about to happen, but maybe it hasn't gotten the recognition that, let's say, the images of the Madonna in the clouds or the images of Jesus in the clouds and so forth. So hopefully that helps. All right, now the next one comes from Begeezy. That's a cool name. From what I understand, HPB called this entity Master R, and then Mark and Elizabeth Clare Prophet came along and used the name Master R to refer to the guru of Saint Germain. Yeah, I guess that's somewhat true. He's commenting about a video I put up when I talked very, very briefly about the Master Rakuzi. Now, the Saint Germain was a previous incarnation of the Master Rakuzi, who will eventually be one of the masters who come out along with Maitreya, not long after Maitreya declares himself in the world. And he's apparently not going to have, he's not really a teacher per se, like some of the other masters, like Jesus, or the master who was Paul, or the master who was John, or the master who was Peter. He's going to be working mainly with governments around the world. So, but yeah, I can see that. And the followers of Elizabeth Clare Prophet, obviously, they talk about, in a very mystical way, these masters, refer to them as the quote-unquote ascended masters. And even though I use that name, I was using that name, Saint Germain, not to talk about the master himself, but to relate to people who perhaps refer to him as that. You know what I mean? So, because according to the masters, the master Jesus isn't really his name. He's just using that because that's the way that people see him as. So anyway, same thing. But anyway, thank you very much for that comment. And then lastly, this one comes from Diego Ablulag. What? With 3 T's? Are you crazy? Oh my God, you are a liar, man. He's talking about the video I put up. What if I told you that Christ had already returned? An intro to Search for Science. Well, I'm not a liar, so I'm actually just giving information for you to think about and for you to consider. If you don't believe it, don't believe it. It's not a big deal, I just hope that, like everybody else that I say this to, that you're taking away from these videos the priorities of Maitreya. The need for peace, the need to solve our environment and so forth, our problems, so forth. I mean, that makes sense. Even if you're a Christian, it would make sense, and it would behoove all of us to help the environment or bring about peace. But anyway, now in terms of am I crazy or not, well, maybe I'm crazy like our prices are so low you think we're crazy, kind of crazy. But the reason why people think this, okay, and I'm not harping on this person, but the reason why people think this is because the truth about the masters has been long forgotten for eons. And this is a relatively new information to people, and it's quite alarming and confrontational and provocative to others. Other people don't believe it because they have no reference to it. But there was a time when there was common knowledge about the masters and who they were, that there was a kingdom of heaven above humanity that was called the spiritual kingdom, and these masters came out of our own personal evolution and mastered what we're still working on and so forth, and decided and chose here to stay here and help us. In 100 years or so from now, it will be common knowledge amongst people. They won't be quite as shocked to hear from Maitreya, or they'll be shocked more of the people of the future will be shocked more of the way that we lived and how wrong we were living and how far away from truth we were living and how separate our lives were and so forth, and how we were able to live a life totally happy and content, why so many people died of hunger and died of lack of clean drinking water, and how so many people were living under these unjust conditions and so forth, and yet we were totally happy with the fact that our lives were fine. We won't be living life like that 100 years from now, or even 50 years from now. And the people of the future, our kids, maybe perhaps when they're older, or their children, will be quite shocked that we put up with such an unjust situation that nearly wrecked all life for everyone in the future, in the present and the future, on planet Earth, and did it so carelessly. And listen to our world leaders who totally denied the fact that we're polluting our environment at this alarming rate. So it's all coming from the same ignorance, that we're not one. That people believe that we're not one. So we harm other people because we don't think it hurts us. But actually, when you harm somebody else, you're harming yourself, really. In a very real sense, you're doing that. The idea of the masters will be a revelation for our generation. But in the future, it'll be, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it be like that? Of course, we're all divine. It'll just be common knowledge, like the fact that the earth is actually a globe and not flat, But in the meantime, you'll think I'm crazy. And that's right. You can think I'm crazy. I don't have no problem with that, So anyway, but hopefully this all helps. I do want to say this real quick before I go. Talking about the events of here in the United States. Okay, if you live here in the United States, of course, and I'm sure around the world you've heard about it too, with the storming of the Capitol and so forth. I do want to say this. Keep your head about you. There is hope. We're not going to destroy ourselves. The masters are already here. Maitreya is already speaking on TV and has been for up to 10 years. You might not believe me, but hopefully you'll have a little bit more hope because of it. But just, it might get worse before it gets better. That energy that it took for those thousands of people to march and take over the Capitol in the way that they did, it's not going anywhere. And it'll, I think, my personal opinion, and I hope to God I'm wrong, hopefully in a month you guys can all say, you were wrong, you didn't know what you're talking about. I'd be the happiest person in the world if I'm wrong in this. But I do think that there'll be more, unfortunately. And just, as those people who, hopefully such as yourself, who want peace, can stand up in protest against what they're doing and demand peace in a peaceful way. You know what I mean? Not in a violent way, of course, but in a peaceful way, because we have to start seeing ourselves as one, and they don't, So anyway, but hopefully that helps. And thank you very much for the questions and the comments. And I look forward to talking to everybody again in future videos. Take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.